All right. Appears that Steinman has won the coin toss, and he's elected to go first. Starting off with a monster we've seen quite a bit of recently, Traptrix Myrmelio, bringing out Bottomless Trap Hole. Thought about setting it there for a moment, but decided to actually put it into his hand, properly resolve the effect, and this way he can set it without his opponent knowing where it is. 4 face-down cards joins Myrmelio. One of them is the Bottomless Trap Hole. And play passes to Zaman, who begins with Upstart Goblin. Now this is a strategy where Upstart Goblin is actually quite useful, and he's packing 2 of them in the first turn, getting 2 more cards out of his deck. Actually, it looks to me like he's got the 3rd one in there too. He does, opening with triple Upstart Goblin in his first turn. It's easily the best thing that can possibly happen when you're playing with the card, is getting them all at once so you get them out of the way, and you know exactly how much damage you have to deal to win the game. Kuribandit comes down next for Zaman. In terms of effect negation, there are, well, no copies of Breakthrough Skill in Steinman's main deck. Or anywhere, really. So barring the use of a Sanctum early on, that Kuribandit's most likely going to resolve. 2 face-down cards join it before the end phase, and Kuribandit activates. We've got Blaster, Whitestone of Legend, Torrential Tribute, Trade-In, and Title, Dragon Ruler of Waterfalls. Trade-In's the easy pick here, because Whitestone of Legend is going to the graveyard, and its mandatory effect will trigger and put Blue Eyes White Dragon from Zaman's deck into his hand.
That was amazing. That loaded so many valuable cards to the graveyard. Difficult to conceive of a set of results that would be better than that for Zaman right now.
The only thing to be better is if Steinman didn't have 11,000 life points.
That would indeed be superior.
But you don't get that sort of effect without giving something up. And in this case, Steinman's opted to give up his special summons for the turn by activating Pot of Duality, revealing Traptrix Dionea, Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare, and a Kuribandit of his own. It's an interesting choice to make. He takes the Kuribandit, feeling that he's going to get something better out of the next 5 cards from his deck than he would with the other 2. And he also has a copy of Call of the Haunted in his main deck that he could use if he were to hit one of his 5 artifact monsters. He plays a 3-2 split of Moral Talk and Beagle Talk. Kuribandit joins the fray, but Steinman passes on attacking with it and instead goes to the end phase, revealing Book of Moon, Wiretap, Artifact Ignition, Artifact Moral Talk, and Fiendish Chain. Now there's an interesting choice. You have to ask yourself, do I have any set artifacts? The fact that he's taking the Ignition indicates to me that there's probably something down there.
The Wiretap would have been an exceptionally strong pick in this situation, so he's got to be telegraphing something taking the Ignition.
Zaman's up next with the Dragon Shrine. Lets him send a dragon to the graveyard, and if it's a normal monster, he can send another. Missed what that is, but based on his deck list, it's going to be either Flamvel Guard or...
Flamvel Guard and Tempest.
Yes, for Blue Eyes, it's the Guard, and that means he can load up Tempest, Dragon Ruler of Storms, as well. And he's got some dragons in there. He's got a couple summons at the ready. But first he's going to activate Trade-In. Note again that he played his cards in the proper order, getting rid of the cards he does not want to draw from his deck before using the spell to draw 2. And Steinman takes a look to see how many possible dragon summons there are. With that out of the way, Zaman goes into the tank to find out how many dragon summons he has. Brings down Card Trooper. Really like Card Trooper. Sending cards from your deck to the graveyard in the main phase is extremely valuable, both in this deck and Lightsworn. And
It's 2 skill drains.
yeah, that was not very fortunate. It kind of revealed
Yeah.
Zaman's plan here. But Card
Powerful.
Trooper's at 1900.
Powerful information for Simon, but yeah, the Trooper's 1900 will swing over, get him another card when it does go down.
There could be worse things than having a Card Trooper on your side of the field. Third set Speller Trap joins Zaman's side. Steinman ponders this information while setting a 5th Speller Trap of his own. It would have to be the Ignition, assuming that he wants to use it.
No aggression from Steinman that turn.
Zaman starts off with the Cards of Consonance on his turn, discarding a 1,000 or less attack Dragon Tuner, drawing 2 cards. And the tuner he happened to discard was the White Sun of Legend, his second copy, which is going to get him his other Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Zaman down on life points, but time is definitely on his side, especially when he keeps hitting draws like that, just loading this insane graveyard. And another trade-in.
Wow. Double trade-in and a Cards of Consonance, all live with a Dragon Shrine, a Card Trooper, and a Resolved Kuribandit. Zaman's really getting everything he wants here, other than rid of Steinman's back row cards.
Another shrine.
Second Dragon Shrine. Well, at this point, nearly all of his monsters are going to be in the graveyard. He leaves the other Flamvel Guard in his deck, opting just to send Redox to the graveyard. That's most likely because he's got another Cards of Consonance somewhere in his deck, possibly in his hand, and he would like it to be live.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking he's holding it. He has so many options in that graveyard at this point. Might be time to start leveraging them into very large bodies to start crashing through those 5 back rows.
You got to get rid of them sometime. And it looks like he's going to banish Redox and something else. It appears to be Tempest to special summon Blaster. In doing so, he is able, or is that title? It appears that he's added the combination of Mythic Tree Dragon and Mythic Water Dragon to his hand. One for each of the 2 Dragon Rulers. That's going to give him access to basically a normal summoned rank 8 Xyz monster.
Mm-hmm.
First by bringing down the Tree Dragon and then the Water Dragon. He may opt not to use it quite yet, though. You kind of want to make sure that you can land, your Felgrand or whatever you're going to summon.
Yeah, at this point he just wants to swing for some damage and feel things out.
And the look on his face says, I forgot to use Card Trooper.
Yeah.
Kind of gets difficult to do the math when Card Trooper's been a 1900 attack monster in your head for so long.
Yeah.
But it's only 400 base attack. It gets an extra 500 points for every card you send to the graveyard while paying its cost.
I don't think we're going to see another mistake like that from Zaman for the rest of this tournament.
Well, that could be slightly ominous because this might be
his last match in the tournament. Yes.
Artifact Sanctum activates, targeting the sideways card. Presumably that is why it's been turned sideways. And Zaman chains with Phoenix Wing Wind Blast.
Are you seeing a discard?
Probably deciding what to discard. Sends away a Soul
Wiretap
Charge.
would be huge here. Nope.
No wiretap. Although Steinman does run 3.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, Steinman is forced to dead draw another artifact. Who knows how many he's got down there? It looked like the one that was sent back was a Beagle Talk. So it could be that he opened double Moral Talk,
Yeah.
and he was just looking to make a massive play by bringing them all out at once. And then hoping Zaman doesn't have his third skill drain set.
Yeah. Scenario would certainly fit with the fairly passive tone we've seen from Steinman so far. I mean, he definitely got in there as much as he could, but...
Well, he's going to have a go now,
Yeah.
activating Soul Charge.
This might be his best shot after escaping that
Mirmilio
trooper.
and Morotalk are back in defense position, and that will trigger Mirmilio's effect. Now, will we see if Zaman has the third skill drain? Targets the card closest.
There
and
we
Zaman does have the
go.
skill drain. That might be just about it. Without access to his monster effects, Steinman's deck can't really do a whole lot.
No Moral Talk effect, no Mirmilio.
He has not used his normal summon for the turn yet, so we could see a tribute summon for that Bigaltok, and he could throw out a very large monster. Is it Blaster large? Highly doubtful.
He could throw out a bunch of monsters with cool effects that won't work. Yeah, he's just got to hang in there.
Yep, fourth face down card, and Steinman is in I would like to please see another turn mode.
That Wind Blast was tremendous.
It always is. Every time that card shows up, it's always doing something.
Especially in the hands of a skilled player on either side of this table. And Zaman knew exactly what he was doing, stacking that deck.
All right, looks like we've got a Soul Charge. No, not a Soul Charge. This is the summon of Tempest, banishing 2 dragons, Flambeau Guard, and it looked like a White Stone of Legend. Yeah, Soul Charge was the discard for Phoenix Wing Wind Blast last turn. So he's got 2 Dragon Rulers, and they're going to stay on the field because of Skill Drain. Knowing that he's got a bit of a disadvantage in life points still, Zaman smartly changes
Playing
his
it
card
very
trooper to
carefully with the
defense.
card trooper to defense. Yep.
Steinman's up, 5th set card, and Zaman's decided to go for it. Switches card trooper back, attacks with it. Trooper connects. Tempest appears to not connect.
Oh.
Zaman's got another
Gonna force it through again.
another Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. That's absolutely devastating.
It's often good enough just to like draw out the Fiendish Chains with potential Ixies materials.
Yep.
But when you're then like countering them in addition, you know you're in a good position.
Steinman luckily had 2. Otherwise, he was just under
Yeah.
the attack points of Blaster, and that would have been it. And I think here you just leave the Dragon Rulers out.
Dracosack up.
Oh, yes. That's right. You contribute Dracosack itself.
Yep.
A little trick from last year's World Championship qualifier. And doing it that way will let him get another back row card off the board, and the Dragon Rulers will be back in the graveyard to
Yep.
do their thing. Doesn't use it, though, and Steinman sets another face-down card. Now, even a Fiendish Chain or something wouldn't save him here, because you're tributing the Dracosack itself. It's not going to be on the field when its effect resolves. Zaman counts the number of cards left in his deck, opts not to use Card Trooper, attacks directly with both monsters, but the third Fiendish Chain keeps Steinman in the game.
I wonder how many cards Zaman has left at this point. I wonder if Simon's best avenue of victory at this point is just to try and stall him out of cards.
Yeah, I think it might be.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to work because there are just so many dragons in that graveyard. And Dracosack's
Yeah.
a wind monster for the Tempest.
Or at least there certainly are now that they're back there.
There is.
Yeah, he's only got 2 cards to worry about.
Yep. And he hit a great one with that Dracosack, taking out the bottomless trap hole that was searched on the first turn of the game.
Oh. Up comes Tempest.
Tempest is here. Steinman's checking to see how many more dragons can come out. The answer is
And
enough.
Yes.
And he concedes the first game.
Steinman has seen enough.
Now, side deck-wise, I bet he wishes he had some of those soul releases to
Yeah.
get rid of all of those dragons.
Yeah, Steinman has 3 soul releases in his side deck, so can't help but think those will probably be coming in.
He's got the Maxis as well.
Maxis, DD Crow.
All sorts of good stuff in there.
Maybe even the 7 tools.
On Zaman's side, well, he's got Malevolent Catastrophe, which, if he can pull it off on one of Steinman's attacks, if Steinman makes an attack while he has a giant field of spell and trap cards, could render the artifacts useless because they only come back if they're destroyed during your opponent's turn.
Oh yeah, I think those 2 are an auto in for Tahmid Zamn.
There's also Rivalry of Warlords. If he gets stuck in another situation where there's a Dragon Ruler and a Card Trooper again, or a pair of Dragon Rulers and he needs deck, for example, Rivalry could come in handy then. It's not as handy as it is against decks like Mermails, where all of their cards are different types.
He's got Decrees as well, which would be nice against Diamond's 18 traps, but I think his best bet at this point is just to stick with the skill drains. He served him so exceptionally well in that last duel.
Yep, the traps don't really matter when you are constantly bringing out 2,800 attack monsters,
Yeah.
and your opponent can't. Steinman looked to be deliberating, taking out Darkhole.
I mean, Zaman's draws and discards and sends to the graveyard with the card trooper and everything were just so strong in that game, turn after turn. There was not much Steinman could have done.
That's just how it goes sometimes. That's the thing when you're playing the Mythic Dragon Ruler deck, and we've seen this in feature matches
Oh yeah.
over the past couple months, is that sometimes everything fires on all cylinders, everything's in the right order, and everything's great and amazing.
Other times, not so much.
And then there's the other times where everything would be seen, but your opponent had Phoenix Wing Windblast and hit the right card with it.
Yeah. We saw that Frazier-Smith feature match where it was game 1 where game 1 was just exceptional and he hit everything he needed. Game 2 he couldn't fill his graveyard to save his life, literally. And then game 3 was like super, super back and forth. And I mean, those are the 3 modes of the Mythic Dragon Ruler deck. It's usually either firing on all cylinders or firing on no cylinders whatsoever. But in a tournament like this, where people are playing a little bit more conservatively because of the stakes and the pace of play is just a little bit more forgiving in that respect, a skilled player can get away with more. Maybe that's part of what Zaman's banking on here. He certainly didn't need to bank on it last game, but yeah. The general conservative tone of bigger, high-stakes tournaments like a World Championship qualifier can make tournaments a little bit more forgiving for certain strategies that might not work elsewhere.
I like to think Steinman's been around long enough to know that that's the case, though. And if he really had an aggressive option, he probably would have taken it.
I think he was certainly dropping Zaman down to 5,400 that early, but the aggression just didn't come.
Well, he gets to start us off this time.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of green and purple. DD Crow, Artifact Moraltak, and Bottomless Trap Hole come off the top for Pot of Duality.
So he sided his Crows in, we know that much.
Yep. Crow, also quite useful. Remember those Dragon Ruler effects do start a chain. But he takes Moraltak, which he wouldn't do if he didn't already have Ignition or a Double Cyclone in his hand.
Looks like he has it. Yeah, he definitely has the Ignition.
4 cards go face down.
No hesitation there.
That's actually a fairly strong opening. Not really flashy. It's not, well, I got my Traptrix and my Trap Holes and all my stuff.
It's no Murmillo or Kuribandit, but it's not bad.
Yep, it's functional. It'll do.
Yeah.
And it's certainly keeping Zaman from playing any cards face up.
Zaman just pass?
Yeah, he set 2 cards and that was it.
Looks like.
He could be trying to play around the Moraltak, or
Steinman's got to be happy to see that.
Or he could be firing on no cylinders. Pot of Duality the second.
This is promising.
Rings Torrential Tribute, Book of Moon, and Sanctum.
Yeah.
Takes the Sanctum.
Steinman wanted to see that.
He's playing a lot faster this game. Like, he likes what he's seen from his deck this time.
Michael Steinman, a highly risk-aware competitor. A lot of the deck lists that he makes are very finely tuned to avoid the kind of brick opening hands that you know, a Mythic Ruler deck would hand you. Not surprised that he is not playing that deck.
Speaking of hands, he's not running any, which basically all of the other Traptrix and Artifact decks are.
Yeah, opting for the Kuribandits instead.
We're seeing a little bit of draw go here. Steinman has filled up his entire back row, 5 spell and trap cards. And Zaman's just doesn't seem like he's drawing any action to start getting through them. Certainly not the perfectly matched draw cards that we saw last time around. Another pass back.
Now those 2 dualities are out of the way. Have to think Steinman is looking to get aggressive as quickly as possible.
Zaman sets a card face down.
Sure enough, it pops the Sanctum.
And he brings out the Galtok.
Yep.
Now this is interesting because he can test to see whether or not Zaman has Skill Drain here by bringing that out. Looks like he's brought it out in attack position though. Goes and destroys that Moraltok that he brought out the first time around, and we see no drain from Zaman. If he hasn't got it, Steinman's in a strong position where he can start using Consular Pleiades to keep Zaman off the board. Still got to watch out for that Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, though. You'd think that after seeing 0 wiretaps game 1, that he's probably got one this time.
Zaman could be slow rolling a bottomless on him.
And that's exactly what we talked about between matches. He caught Steinman with Malevolent Catastrophe in his own turn.
And that's not the look of a man who has a wiretap.
He's going to go ahead and give it a shot with Sanctum, though. Not sure exactly what he's doing there. Now, destroying the Sanctum is going to skip Zaman's next battle phase. So perhaps what Steinman's doing is getting out the Galtok from his deck so he doesn't draw it later.
Yeah.
That would fit the profile. Oh, and he loses Solemn Warning, and is that Needle Sealing?
Is it Needle Sealing or Nightmare? I believe he's he is manning 1 Needle Sealing. I believe that's what it was.
That said, the attack still goes through, and the White Stone of Legend goes to the graveyard, bringing Blue Eyes White Dragon from the deck for Zaman.
It's a question now of can Zaman follow up. If he can, it's maybe very close to over.
It's not the worst position to be in since you've got 2 level 5 monsters. I can't tell whether or not he attacked with the Big Altok first. Yes, he did. It's reflected in the scores. And Consular Pleiades is next.
Yep.
That was, in fact, the Needle Sealing.
Yeah.
So, no battle phase for Zaman. Consular Pleiades on
Good
the field.
positioning for the Pleiades, yeah.
No normal summon yet, so Kuribandit takes the stage.
Following up with the Kuribandit.
And Steinman refills his spell and trap zones before activating Kuribandit. That's Deep Dark Trap Hole, Kuribandit, Torrential Tribute, Traptrix, Dionaya, and another Moraltok. He's going to go ahead and take the Deep Dark Trap Hole. Perfect thing to have against level 5 and higher monsters. Deep Dark Trap Hole, I believe, pictures Goyo Guardian.
It does.
Going to the terrible place where he's been for the last couple of years. He's back on Monday. All right, Zaman is up.
In the unenviable position of having to make some commitments here without any forward velocity, really. Without his battle phase.
No battle phase, dealing with Pleiades. He banishes Tidal and the White Stone of Legend to summon Redox, Dragon Ruler of Boulders, in defense position. Doing so lets him retrieve Mythic Water Dragon from his deck. And he at least knows that the Deep Dark Trap Hole that was searched out isn't there because it happened in the end phase.
Yeah.
So what's the follow-up to that? Mythic Tree Dragon. This is probably going to be the free rank 8 play normal summon that we told you about earlier. Barring trap card interference, Mythic Tree Dragon is the normal summon, and then the Water Dragon that he just searched out can be special summoned and used to...
And there it is.
The Tree Dragon can then match the level of the Water Dragon, which would make them both level 8. Steinman's considering his options.
I mean, at this point, Zaman's goal is just to get those materials off that Pleiades as fast as possible and disrupt Steinman's control over this duel.
Yep, Steinman's got to use it. Otherwise, he's going to be facing down Divine Dragonite, Felgrand, or worse. Targets the Tree Dragon. That leaves 2 mismatched monsters on the field. Water Dragon's 8, Redox is 7, and while you can special summon Water Dragon if you have an Earth Dragon on the field, it is the Tree Dragon that does the level adjustment. Now, the interesting thing with Redox is that its defense points are so high that Steinman practically has to use a card effect to get around it. I'm not sure what he would play in his deck that would have enough attack points to deal with it. Burial from Another Dimension.
Wow, Burial
down.
to Soul Charge.
Yep. Returns the Dragon Ruler and the White Stone.
It's going to fix the mismatched level problem. Now Zaman has tons of options.
Yeah.
Rank 7s. 7. Synchro Summon a level 8. Synchro Summon a level 8 and go into a rank 8.
You could go Scrap Dragon. I think whatever he has to do, it's got to get rid of the Pleiades. And at this point, you know, the missed battle phase is kind of moot because of Soul Charge.
Yeah. He's at least doubling up on that.
All right.
But
Synchro
he's
Summoning with Redox.
Even with those cards being relatively free off the Soul Charge, he's burning a lot of options to try and get this done.
A lot of life points, too. But he really needs it if he's going to get rid of the Pleiades. And there is the Scrap Dragon.
The scrap.
But will he destroy his title or the defensive Water Dragon? One thing's for certain, he's got to do it now or else Scrap Dragon's going away.
Yeah, I know. He's committed at this point.
Now, since the White Stone is sent to
Call
graveyard again.
for Moraltalk. There it is.
Oh, not bad. Not bad at all.
Yeah.
Call of the Hunted on Moraltalk ends the Scrap Dragon threat, even though Zaman does have another Blue Eyes in hand. He's got no trade-ins to deal with them.
Once again, stuck with an 8 and a 7. There's a lot of fancy footwork just to get Call Moraltalked.
One face-down card. Skill Drain could help here. It would keep Pleiades from getting rid of Tidal. Tidal has 100 attack points advantage over Pleiades.
Mm-hmm.
And Steinman appeared to be checking the defense and attack points of the monsters to figure out how big is Water Dragon again? I believe it's 2,000. 2,000, not enough to survive an attack from Moraltalk.
Yeah, Water Dragon has 2,000 DF.
Steinman's going to go ahead and he's agonizing over this decision.
Back goes the material.
Picks it down, picks it back up again, and detaches to bounce away. Tidal.
Oh.
Second Malevolent Catastrophe, but this time it's nixed by Wiretap and goes back to the deck. That would have been brutal. But the format-defining counter trap has its way with Malevolent Catastrophe. Water Dragon goes down to Moraltalk's attack, and Pleiades strikes directly for
Steinman sets up a
2,500
huge back row again. You have to think Zaman was really hoping to not have to deal with that after the catastrophe. Just gets worse instead.
Now, is he running Constellar M7? No, he's got double Pleiades.
No M7.
No M7 to upgrade for the extra attack points. If ever there is time to have it in your extra deck, though, that was it. Cards of Consonance comes down for Zaman.
Debris Dragon.
Debris Dragon. Ooh, ultimate rare Debris Dragon. Very nice.
Not as nice as a Whitestone Legend would have been there, though.
Trade-ins next. It looks like he might be getting his draw engine going.
There we go.
But can he trade in into trade-in? That is the true heart of the cards moment. Upstart Goblin's
Can
next.
he Upstart Goblin into trade-in?
He did it.
It happens.
It's happening. Consonance into trade-in, into Upstart, into trade-in. And suddenly it's gone. The Dragon Ruler deck has gone from 0 to 60 in about 30 seconds. Not good for a car, but when you're a pile of cards with dragons pictured on them, I'd say that's pretty great.
That's fodder for at least 2 ranks. 2 Dragon Rulers.
Water Dragon and White Son of Legend are banished to bring back Redox. Big defensive card. Redox, short for, well, it's the portmanteau of reduction and oxidation. Chemical reactions involving the transfer of electrons. Similarly, its baby form is reactant, 1 letter short of reactant. Substance consumed in a chemical reaction.
A shrine for more fuel.
Wow. It's like that was the fuel he needed to start the fire under his deck. And he sends Blaster, the Fire Dragon Ruler of Infernos, to the graveyard. Another Dragon Ruler summon is next. Both copies of Blue Eyes are banished to summon Blaster. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that the Dark Duel Stories? Parallel Rare Blue Eyes? Like one of the very first ones in the very first video game?
The odds would be against it, but it certainly looks like it.
It looks like it.
Fancy.
Blaster goes ahead and attacks Moraltok.
Zaman's still very aware that he needs to press through those 3 back rows piece by piece. Not risking a consolidation at this point because Redox has a big backside. And if this goes in the wrong direction, that's the only thing keeping him in the game.
Artifact Sanctum from Steinman.
And it does.
He's got a Moraltok, and it takes out Blaster. That second Pleiades in his extra deck is going to be the card that seals the game.
That's going to be what wins on this duel.
But Zaman doesn't know that yet.
Zaman probably has some idea that that could be what's about to happen. The pressure's on him now to cut that off, and he seems to understand that.
He's got Tidal up next.
Oh!
And that falls into the deep dark trap hole that came off of Kuribandit earlier in the duel. Who's next? It's Flamvelgard.
Goes for a Synchro Summon.
To Redox, to Synchro Summon. I don't know what you're going to get at level 8. Start as Spark Dragon.
Yeah, just has to put that out there and hope it survives, which it's not going to. Unless that is something amazing, but Steinman going straight for the rank 5.
Blast, but it doesn't matter.
Reveals the wire tap and it's over.
Yep. I don't know. I feel like you got to make him show you what that card was and actually use the wiretap against it.
Might have been a little bit more advantageous. I think Steinman just happy to be back in this match now.
Yep. Got a bit of a gift in the form of the Dragon Ruler deck doing the thing it does that isn't winning.
Even with that rough opening, though, I mean, Zaman was just right back in it towards the end.
Yep. As soon as you start hitting the first draw card, the second and third are soon to follow. So, any changes do you think we'll see from side decking again this time around?
That's a good question.
The deep dark trap holes came in, and I can't really see them going out, except for the fact that Steinman is going second. There's always the chance that he might take them out, fearing a blitz of special summons on the first turn from Zaman, who might do it specifically to play around what he's seen from the second duel.
It's definitely a possibility.
I don't think.
But at the
it's
same
gonna
time,
happen,
I don't know if Zaman's going to bank on that, knowing
No.
that, there are decent odds that those moves simply won't be available. And Steinman's going to know that those moves may not simply be available. That seems like a risky gambit.
I see the max C's coming in.
Yeah.
And he's probably doing that to keep pace, just in case we see one of those nutty openings.
I'm actually surprised they weren't in originally for game 2. I mean, it makes sense, but
Yep. I get the feeling that he felt that by going first and setting all his traps, he would stop the special summons from ever starting.
that or he just simply understood that he needed to press as hard and fast as possible.
Oh, and we see the bottomless and the deep dark trap hole. And it appears that he took bottomless trap hole
Bottomless out?
out
Is that...
and left deep dark trap hole in. Could just be a trick, though, and he might just put the bottomless trap hole right back in. Barring some sleight of hand,
Doesn't
though,
look
he
like it.
didn't. He has
That
sided
bottomless is
out
gone.
Bottomless trap hole. That's a very interesting choice.
Well, I guess it just hits a wider... Not necessarily a wider range of monsters, but a different range of monsters. As there are some monsters here that are in Zaman's deck that are over level 5 that are below 1500 ATK.
But then again, there are also a bunch of monsters in Zaman's extra deck that
don't fit that
have
description
levels,
precisely.
but have plenty of attack points.
I wonder if Steinman's more counting on the notion of hitting the soul charges more than what the soul charges can create, and just kind of cutting off Zaman at his biggest play as possible, as opposed to worrying about the smaller grindy plays.
You'd probably want the bottomless trap hole for that too as well. I mean, you're not going to hit a tuner either way.
I'd love to talk to Steinman and ask him about that question.
It'd be very interesting. All right. Zaman is up for the final game of this top 16 match.
Opening with a Dragon Shrine, always promising.
Dragon Shrine for Flamvel Guard and title. Oh, you know, I know what it could be. Deep Dark Trap Hole only banishes the monster, correct?
Yes, it does get around destruction protective effects.
It may be a specific thing against the Stardust Dragons, which Bottomless would not work against.
There's definitely a few different reasons.
It would also get around if he brought out Azorize, Silver Dragon, I believe, later on in the duel. As long as it doesn't happen on the first turn, though. All right, he's gone ahead and banished both Redox and Tidal to special summon Tempest from his hand.
Loads up the Mythic Water Dragon and the Mythic Tree Dragon.
He's getting his combo again, and this is exactly what we talked about. Zaman's going all out to get as many monsters on the board as he can before Steinman's traps become live. And that is a Divine Dragonite Felgrand, and Steinman is without a Max C.
To me, Zaman playing very aggressively, and it looks like it totally worked.
Yep, that's what you got to do when you get the first turn against this deck.
Yeah. Looks like Steinman has compulsory evacuation device. Is that a deep dark trap hole on the end?
So it looked like he has Artifact Ignition in there as well. And I'm foreseeing a situation where he can try to bait out the negation of Divine Dragonite Felgrand with, say, a Morale Talk play, and then chain with compulsory. Oh no. 4 face down cards. And Zaman's one lone set card was Royal Decree. Steinman's got that ignition, though.
Could be fine.
Could be fine.
Looks big. The crowd certainly erupted.
If they saw what we saw, then there's every chance that they are doing the respectful thing and not giving it away.
Yeah, it would certainly be suggestive if Tahmid Zamn flipped Royal Decree and the crowd was just deathly silent for no reason.
Good sports out there in the crowd. 3 cards to the graveyard for Card Trooper. Makes it 1,900. And looks like Steinman is thinking very, very hard about when he wants to destroy that decree.
Definitely got to get this right, because if he doesn't, he is out of this tournament.
And all that pointing back and forth indicates to me that time has been called in the round. And they are seeing who gets the last turn. Survival.
The time situation here does not play into Steinman's favor in this particular board.
The 2,000 points are great, but that doesn't do you a whole lot of good if you go to 0. Or even just...
Or just 7,999.
6,000. He does not look happy about the fact that time has run out in this match. But now is the time for more clarity and thinking than ever before.
Yeah.
You got to put that behind you and win this game in any way you possibly can. Keeps checking his back rows.
He's fidgeting, but it's not a fidgeting that communicates penultimate disaster. Like,
it's more of, I think I can. I think I can destroy that decree. I think I can stop these monsters from beating me down.
Or not.
And that's the problem with I think I can, because maybe you can't. He can certainly take out the decree, though, and he does with Artifact Ignition. Setting MegaCapitalG from his deck. MegaCapitalG would make a great defensive wall if he could get it into play.
Oh. Now he doesn't need defensive walls. He needs to make up a lot of ground.
But he has nothing else to put in the way, and takes all the damage. 2,700 points is the difference. Time appeared to be called in Zaman's turn. So this will be turn 1
Seems
of
like
the
it's
3
turn 1.
extra turns. That means Steinman will get the last turn, assuming that we have understood the sign language correctly.
Always a favorable position. If he gets there.
Yes, that is the trick.
Traptrix die on him.
It's summoned, but he can't particularly use its effect. And he attacks Card Trooper to get in some damage. 5th card joins the back row. But Zaman's got a trade in. He could just flat out overwhelm. The tricky thing with this Felgrand is that at the first sign of trouble, that Felgrand is going to become invincible to harm.
But it won't be invincible to compulsory evacuation device.
It's true.
Steinman just needs to be able to put together a pair of threats. One alone isn't going to do it.
He is 1 direct attack with that Traptrix monster away.
Zaman looking visibly cooler.
From taking the lead. But first he has to make it through this turn. Deep Dark Trap Hole.
There it is.
Takes out Tempest. Can't get another search with it.
Not exactly a loaded graveyard at the moment for Zaman.
Nope. And you'll notice he kept his
But
Felgrand ability.
Is that a shrine?
It's a burial?
It's shrine.
It's a shrine. Burial would be
good news for
right
Zaman. Yeah, burial would be ridiculous.
That leaves him with only 1 Dragon Ruler left. It's Blaster. Everybody else is banished.
Yep.
But again, making up a life point differential is Steinman's problem, not Zaman's. Blaster's up next.
Zaman is in that fortunate role of not having to win this match, just having to not lose it at this point.
Ooh, DD
Crow
takes out the Blaster. All the Dragon Rulers
Steinman brought
are gone.
in everything.
throwing the kitchen sink at the Dragons.
Yeah, Zaman just walling up.
Yep, he took a little more damage.
Steinman's
from
got to get this moving or it's not going to work.
And I don't know that he can do it between the Felgrand and a face-down card and what's most likely defensive trap.
2 back rows.
Like, even just a Wing Blast would put this game out of reach.
Yep. Steinman knows it. Now the real fidgeting starts. The non-productive fidgeting begins. That is not strong body language. There we go. Yeah.
And that's it.
Tahmid Zamn headed to the top 8 with Mythic Rulers.
He now